Hey folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome, everyone.
It is Super Bowl Sunday.
and we're not watching the Super Bowl.
No. Normally, like, it's kind of a tradition for our family to go to St. Lawrence Mass because they have a 7 p.m. Mass, and it is completely empty. There's like 5 people there. And the priest there, Father Watkins, who is also a Bengals fan, man, he goes fast. It is a 20-minute Mass. So we're going to the game. Super Bowl Mass. And it's like, it goes real fast. We can park anywhere. There's no line to get out, you know. But now now I go to the Latin Mass, and so we didn't go to that one this week.
But here's the thing, and so the tradition has been to go to that Mass on Super Bowl Sunday because he likes to watch the Super Bowl. But now the Bengals are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, did he knock it down to 5 minutes maybe?
I'd be surprised if there's any. Maybe he didn't even show up.
Yeah, I mean, he might have got there, seen there's nobody in the church, said a quick Mass by himself, and headed back to the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and like, if you hear cheering or something in the background, it's because my wife is watching the game. So, it is what it is. I'm not watching it. Last I heard, the Bengals are losing.
It's not surprising,
but not by much, though.
Mm-hmm.
And
I hope they win. I wish them well. They are my,
Well, you don't have to live in Cincinnati.
I don't live in Cincinnati.
Really,
I know.
Into it and
crazy, yeah.
Wound up.
If they win, going to be a lot of wild partying for the rest of the night.
And everybody's going to be yelling and oh well.
Yeah, but then all the bars will be full and a bunch of money will be made and the city will reap a little bit of benefit from the taxes.
Like my son,
there we go.
My son is off work tomorrow if they win.
Yeah.
So I guess the boss is planning on having like a 2-day party if they win.
Why didn't he invite your son to the party?
He did. I don't know if he did or not. Actually, my son went to Jason's house. Jason's having people over. Did you see his text?
No, I didn't.
He said,
Terry,
I hope the Bengals make a lot of home runs.
Did he say that somewhere public like Facebook?
He said it in a group text. I guess you don't get these. Between the guys who live here in Cincinnati who commonly, do things together.
Yeah. Okay.
Like when I'm going to go to this bar or that bar tonight, and if anyone wants to go, so. Okay. Or if we have a camp night or a guys' night out, it's that group.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is having people
next time
over.
You do a camp night.
Half of my kids are over there at his house.
Yeah.
Anyway, as promised, we are going to talk about tax evasion, which, I guess, at first we need to exactly define what that is, because there's a couple ways of evading taxes.
Before we even do that, I want to point out, and I'm going to challenge anybody listening, if they know otherwise, let us know. But as far as I've been able to find, the only, let's say, definitive, which is not quite definitive, but, specific statement regarding tax evasion that I can find that is somewhat magisterial in nature is in paragraph 2409 of the Catechism. And the paragraph is actually talking about, some sins against the seventh commandment. And,
you do have some verses in the Bible,
sort
in
of
Romans.
But here's my point. Hold on just a minute. In a small text, like maybe what you're looking at doesn't have it as small text, but mine has it as like the fine print, and it says the following are also morally illicit. So it's kind of like a footnote thing. And it just lists a whole bunch of things, and kind of embedded in the middle of there is tax evasion. No discussion of what actually constitutes tax evasion.
Right.
It's just kind of like one of these footnoted, things. Okay, now what were you going to say about...
That's in the catechism. Okay.
That's the catechism.
Well, in the Bible, in Romans, it says, "For because of this, you also pay taxes, for the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes are owed." Let every subject to the governing authorities. I guess, and also pointing out the fact that Jesus was born in Bethlehem because of taxes.
Yeah, they had to travel to... Now, that was a tax imposed by Herod for the census, right?
I believe so. I think... I'm not sure.
Or was that a Roman census?
My understanding that it was like the Romans wanted to collect the taxes, and Herod's like, well, in order to do this, everybody has to go back to their hometown. And
so I can collect the right amount of money from the right tribes, maybe to pay the Romans their tribute or something like that. That could be what it was for. Yeah. I admit I haven't read more deeply into the history of that than what's in the Bible itself.
Okay. Well, so tax evasion could mean several things. For example, you could just not claim your taxes. So you make a bunch of money, say, under the table, and then you don't file taxes. Therefore, the government doesn't know what you made, and they can't tax you until they finally see your name popping up on something. And then, so if you're making money under, or at least you think you're making money under the table because taxes aren't being withdrawn, and then you get a 1090 form.
Yeah.
Then
that means you
got screwed.
Your money's been reported to the government, and they'll be expecting taxes from you.
So if anybody says, "I'll pay you under the table," and then asks you to fill out a W-9, don't do it. They're not paying you under the table. They're just not taking out taxes.
Right.
So
they're not withholding for you.
I fell into that trap when I was like 19. I was like, I'd be getting paid under the table. And then, all right, well, just fill this out real quick. Okay, whatever. And then I get a 1099, and it's like, this wasn't under the table. You just didn't take out the taxes, and now I have to pay them, or else I get in trouble. But that is one form of tax evasion. Another form of tax evasion would be to lie on your income tax filing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You
just
made
misrepresent something.
$5,000 and you tell them you made $2,000. That is,
I made $5,000, but I gave $3,000 to charity.
Yeah, that too.
Or something,
So it involves a lie, and so not
lie
just
is a sin.
Lie is always a sin, and it's not just a lie. I don't know. It's a public declaration,
Oh, right. It's kind of like lying in a matter of an oath, not quite as solemn as, say, a courtroom.
Right.
But certainly more solemn than the lies that you tell each other.
You might say, yeah. So it is kind of a big deal to claim one thing when you know that that's not the truth. And then some people will classify tax avoidance as evasion, which it's not, because you're just, they call them loopholes. I don't know why they call them loopholes. They are laws saying what you have to pay, and you use those laws to pay the least amount of taxes possible. That's
the reason they call them loopholes is because the makers of the laws, think of like they're weaving a fabric to establish a pattern, a way that things are going to run. And because it's complex and because they always want to make stuff complicated, it's what lawmakers do. They end up creating the threads of the fabric are all carefully woven and put there by the lawmakers, But what they didn't realize was that they left a hole in the fabric, and you can go through that hole, a loophole, in order to accomplish something that the words of the law allow you to do, but the intention that they thought they were encoding in those words, they didn't want you to be able to do.
See, I don't
So
see
that's
it
what a
that
loophole
way.
is.
That's
Well, I'm
what
not
a
saying
loophole is.
that doesn't make it wrong. That's just what a loophole is. A loophole is
That's what a
something,
loophole is.
Yeah,
But I don't
technically,
think tax laws have any loopholes. I think those are there for the people who make the laws, maybe
their
sometimes
crony friends.
themselves or their crony friends, to say, okay, I'm not going to take half of your wealth. This is how you're going to file, and then you're going to donate a lot of that back to me. Or, I mean, it's crony capitalism, I think. Mm-hmm. Most of those things. Yeah. And it's put there, I think, on purpose to allow certain people to take advantage and not pay their taxes.
Right.
Or not pay what seems like ought to be paid.
So most forms of tax avoidance that are legitimate on paper are probably, you could either call them deliberate loopholes, or, like you said, it's probably a case of a little bit of cronyism between the lawmakers and some of their rich subjects.
Yeah.
Or, they'll call it rich constituents. We don't have...
Right. The question is... Hold on. It sounds like you're moving around.
Okay. Can you hear me, by the way?
I can hear you. All right. Can you hear me?
Hold on. I think my...
hang up again.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I gestured and yanked the cord on my earbuds or whatever and dropped the phone, and then it wasn't working anymore. So I found a new one, but it was like somebody had like tangled it up. Like I had to keep threading the end through the different holes and stuff. Okay, we're back online.
Okay,
I was just pointing out we don't have subjects in America. We have constituents.
Yeah. Which is another big part of this, because the Pharisees, I think, bring up to Jesus this question. They're trying to trap him, and they're saying, should we be paying taxes to Rome? Which you got to understand their position a little bit. At that time, Rome is an occupying country, kind of. They're offering the Jews protection from other nations, and out of that, the Jews have to pay Rome money. And a lot of people didn't care for that. That's why the tax collectors were so much hated, because they didn't feel like they should be paying money to another nation. And are you still with me? I think I lost him. I did lose him. He's still trying to get his phone set up. Well, how much did you hear? I talked about that one famous verse on taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was pointing out that the tax collectors were Jews who were collecting from other Jews to pay that tribute to Caesar.
Right. Which, if you're kind of a political person, that would make sense. We pay Caesar and we get protection from Caesar. If you're a religious person, it's like, wait a minute, we're supposed to trust in God. We should not be paying these people to protect us, because God's going to protect us. Right. And so that's the conflict that the Pharisees want to get Jesus to comment on. And they're saying, should we pay taxes? And Jesus turns it around and makes them look like petty and fools. Says that Caesar's money, give it to Caesar. You guys adopted this Roman money changing system. What's wrong with giving it back to the Romans? So that's part of it, and his big thing is here is, if governments want to collect money in order to protect their citizens, let them do that. One of the problems with this is, in America, we are Caesar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly true. And so in a certain sense we are, because like we collectively are Caesar.
Yeah.
But individually we can't presume the powers of Caesar.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to go defend a nation by myself or something like that.
So in America, and it is a little bit of in America, presumably, because there are questions of justice and that sort of thing when it comes to taxes. How much the government collects, whether it uses what it collects wisely, appropriately, and so on and so forth. And in America, in theory, if the government's doing it wrong, our recourse is to vote them out of office.
Right.
Now, we learned that it's kind of an awkward thing because ever since, what was the amendment because it used to be that, in order to vote, you had to have a stake.
So you had to own
hold land, stuff like that. And, we can't do that anymore. And the sort of, I'm going to say unintended, maybe it was intended, but the result of that is that a lot of people vote, who don't have enough of a stake to bother to find out what's in their best interest.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot of people in America that vote purely on something like name recognition or, repeated ads that say, I'll fight for you or whatever. It's, this, a very shallow, superficial, understanding of the race. And then people go vote based on that. And so what you find is that a lot of times, aside from the government itself, taking more money than it should, the politicians, the legislators particularly, have ways of manipulating that money into either favors for their communities directly that maybe at the federal level, it shouldn't even be possible. Or they use their position in order to then also leverage and political favors to leverage a lot of money from donors and stuff so that they can put out the various kinds of advertisements and marketing material that cause the masses of the uninformed to vote for them reflexively. And that's really what happens to a large extent in America. Now, in the last, couple of decades, more in the last 5 years, we've started to see a surge of consciousness among the American voter, a surge of, the number of people who are paying attention has gone way up, which is what explains the Trump phenomenon. But as a general rule, American politics are hugely decided by masses of uninformed people who are just voting reflexively, and that makes it very difficult when you recognize the government is doing something wrong with your taxes or taking more taxes than they have any just right to do. It makes it very difficult to do anything about it within the system.
On top of that, I'm convinced the vote doesn't even matter anyway. After our last election, one guy clearly won, and the other guy is clearly in his place. So, that happened. If you deny that happened, I don't know. You're really shutting your eyes to the obvious.
Go join the Flat Earth Society. If you don't think that happened, you belong with the Flat Earthers.
Yeah. So it, comes down to, it's like there are certain people who are going to be allowed to win, and that's just the way it's going to happen. Someone like Trump will never get in again. But, here's the thing. We get to a point where the government, what essentially the government is doing is redistributing wealth because of the phenomenon you just described. It's like it makes it so that the politicians, by promising the masses certain benefits, that's how they get elected. And in order to do that, they tax anyone, especially the middle class, They tax them, and of course the upper class is, I don't know, when you see the number of the percentages of taxes they pay, it's just outrageous. And then giving that in the form of welfare and other benefits to the lower class. And that's kind of what America is becoming, which, I mean, as we do that more and more, we creep closer to socialism or communism, which the church has spoken out on many times. And despite Pope Francis's, I don't know what you could call them if not communist suggestions and letters, and everything he's done has been in favor of communism. Obviously, he can't change church teaching, and I don't know if you can actually have a teaching on a political system, but what happens in communism is taught against. Yeah. One of which is taking wealth from one person and giving it to another.
This was roundly condemned by Pope Leo XIII in Rerum Novarum.
Yeah. There's no argument here, really. So when we've got to a point where something like what's happening right now, where more and more of our money's going to other people.
Yeah, not even to services that serve everybody, but just to other people. And those other people, sometimes they're poor people.
Sometimes they are.
Sometimes they're people who make a good argument why they should get money.
Yeah. And sometimes it's been argued it goes to things like subsidies and corporations even. For example, when a company, quote, is too big to fail. I think that's how they described it. Delta, GE.
They say, it would be so economically disastrous if this company failed. It would just bring misery upon everybody. We better bail it out with federal monies.
Yeah. This is so wrong on so many levels. Yeah. And if you go throughout Catholic teaching and theology, even going to St. Thomas Aquinas, they talk about distributism, or I guess that's what it's called.
Distributism is a term for a specific kind of economic system that came up after the Industrial Revolution, and it was proposed. In my opinion, it was proposed. It was really a kind of socialism that the people who thought it up thought would avoid the problems of socialism.
Yeah.
But ultimately it amounted to the same thing, which is taking money away from people to make sure other people get it.
Chesterton was one of the people who came up with something like that. And as many things as he's right about, this was one thing that was just, what was the book that he wrote? Tales of the Longbow, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Where one of the guys, was giving away property, and I think he made arguments for it, saying that, it would, all the arguments, it would allow more people to take part in property ownership.
Right.
What he never acknowledged was that this more or less happened in America. I mean, it's how we started.
That's true.
Think of homesteading. That happened, and millions of people were suddenly property owners who wouldn't have been property owners without the homestead laws. And what happened? One or two generations later, what do we got? Same thing.
Exactly where it was. Not only homesteading, but like land grants to like say Civil War soldiers and stuff like that. If you fought in the army for a certain amount of time, the government would give you some land, stuff like that. But the thing is, ultimately, what happened is the people who were a little bit more, adventurous and stalwart in spirit and could stomach risks and had the capacity to manage things ended up being the people that other people wanted to work for. And so you ended up with the same kind of tiered, you got people in charge and you got people who have to be part of the team in order to get your daily bread or whatever. It's just that it happened naturally in America rather than through a process of inheritance, where back in old Europe, often imbeciles would end up with a lot of money and would badly affect a lot of people's lives because they simply, they were the next in line in that family.
But the church seems to support a system like that, distributism. Really what it supports is people being allowed to have property no matter what their class is.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And this is... Yeah. It's not giving everyone a bunch of property. It's having them be able to take part in commerce and in property ownership, especially families. And that's a lot different than distributism. And when things like happen, like the government bailing out these giant companies, it keeps the smaller classes, the poorer people, from owning more property. It exactly encourages monopolies, because if someone like take a bank who owns a bunch of mortgages and the bank goes out, I know that there's a lot of chaos that comes out of that, but one of the things that happen is the banks sell their loans.
Yeah.
And smaller companies buy them.
Right. And then those loans get bought. But, the thing is, even like, let's say people have investments with that bank. So, the bank maybe has to sell the loans at, a much lower amount than the loans ought to be worth, in order to pay off creditors. They're going belly up and so on and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
People who had their money invested in that bank, then perhaps they end up losing their shirt because of that bank's bad practices and the bank going belly up, especially if it's a huge bank like, or insurance company or whatever, like AIG, one of these too big to fails. Okay, so you get a generation of people, not necessarily a whole generation of people who have lost their shirts, but a generation of people who know someone who knows someone who lost their shirts, right? Like that.
That's usually what it is, yeah.
So, but here's the thing.
And I don't think those people are often middle class.
Yeah. But government comes in and bails them out. And then what happens because of the situation is that everybody just goes on as they've always gone on, entrusting their money to whoever without thinking about it. But if the government doesn't step in, if these too large to fail companies fail, then 1, 2, 3 generations later, people have it in their memory. My dad, my grandpa, my great-grandpa lost his shirt by not paying attention, by not knowing about the financial activities of the company he had his money invested in, or by having all of his eggs in one basket. People become shrewder because of these kinds of failures. In order to allow the general population worldwide or within a country like the United States to truly prosper in a responsible way, you have to let these failures happen when they're caused by the irresponsible behavior of these big companies.
Yeah. And not only that, but what you end up with is the same system that you described in Europe, where complete idiots are controlling vast amounts of land and property, or money in this case, when they ought not to be, because they're the ones who failed. And exactly. They've got this cushion now from the government, and who keeps them in power. And not only that, but when any kind of, when there's a hole in any industry, whether it's airlines or banking or car making, if there's a hole, it gets filled by smaller companies.
Yeah.
Which distributes the wealth.
If the government fills the holes, it keeps the wealth from getting distributed.
Yeah. In other words, the rich continue to be rich, and those who are less rich continue to miss out on that. So the money we pay in taxes is now going to things like that, and to try to tell farmers you're going to farm this instead of this, instead of farmers making decisions based on the market and possibly sometimes losing it. Suddenly they farm based on what the government wants them to do, and what a few rich people decide they ought to be doing.
Right.
Because
the government will pay farmers to not grow certain crops during certain years.
Yeah.
Or to let certain parts of their fields just go fallow or whatever.
The idea that, we're moving into a system of utopia where everybody will get a share of the money coming from the rich is just ridiculous. That's not what it's moving toward. It's continuing to be the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Yeah.
Now, so let's, because we're getting to a point where we're almost making a moral argument here. Let's
right. I mean that we got to separate. Even if the government's doing something bad, ought we to pay taxes?
Well, that's what I want to come up with two different definitions of tax evasion.
Okay.
And then the question is, are they morally equivalent regardless or not? So the first definition of tax evasion is a strictly legalistic one. It's finding some way to pay fewer taxes or to pay less in taxes than the letter of the law dictates that you would pay, given your circumstance. Okay, that's one version of tax evasion. Okay, a second version of a tax evasion is paying less than you as an informed Christian judge that you ought to pay given the circumstances of society and your circumstances. That would be a second. So and the reason I bring this up is because I think that the current Pope thinks that people who take advantage of ways to reduce their take advantage of legal ways to reduce their taxes, in many cases are still guilty of a sort of moral tax evasion. Because I think the current Pope thinks everybody should pay more taxes than they currently do.
Yeah. He's
because he thinks it needs to be redistributed.
And he's come out and said this.
So if you say, hey, wait a minute, okay, the government is taking, of all the taxes that it takes, 15% of it is going into wealth redistribution programs of some form or another. And that is unjust. That's an unjust encroachment on my wealth and my property and what I own and what I've earned with my sweat and hard work. And therefore, I'm going to find a way to reduce my taxes by that 15%, beyond what the letter of the law says that I should be paying. Well, okay, if I have to lie to do it, then there's a sin of lying. And like you said, it's sort of a exaggerated sin of lying because it's kind of like a public lie. Yeah. But on top of that, or if it's a lie by omission, if I, manage to acquire some thing of value somehow without reporting it, whatever. But is there an additional sin of tax evasion on top of that lie if I arrived at the decision to do that based on a consideration of justice when it comes to my money and what I have versus what I owe to the government as part of being part of a society? Is it possible for someone to make that judgment as a Christian without falling into some kind of moral error?
Well, I know that this hasn't necessarily been defined anywhere.
That's the problem. It hasn't.
Yeah, again, we get back to what the government ought to be doing with the money, or what the government ought to be collecting. And that's not defined either, but in classic Catholic theology, the state is supposed to be getting money for a couple things. And the state does need that money in order to do those things. For example, defense of the people, maintaining law and order, and possibly setting up things like infrastructure.
Right.
Those seem like what the state ought to be doing. They do so much more than that. Almost every state does nowadays. I mean, the entire world right now is a welfare state.
Right.
There's no place where it's not really. So it seems like the system now has abandoned the Catholic idea of what a government ought to be. The entire world has.
Including the Pope.
Well, that's the thing.
That's what's
the weird
so
part.
Frustrating. Yeah.
Because now our Pope has also abandoned all the things that we took for granted. And I don't see it as a sin to try to avoid that.
Right. If you know, I hate to be I don't know what the word is, but sort of nitpicky about you know my scrupulosity, but I would qualify it's not only not inappropriate, it's probably appropriate to try to avoid paying that as long as you can do so without committing some other sin to accomplish that. That's the sticking point.
And there's also the point that we got to mention is that the money that we give to the government is being used to pay for outright sinful things, you know, like abortion. The money we're giving ends up going to abortion, whether they want to admit it right now or not. That's happening. It's also going to not just programs that are not Catholic, but programs and situations that are against Catholics, that are set up in order to destroy Catholic thinking and Catholic ways of living.
Right.
And so for that reason, there might be a little bit of an obligation to that's the thing. There's an obligation to fight it. The only real way to fight it is to just not pay it. But that just puts you in jail.
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe there are ways to avoid taxes. You know, I know that I've seen I'm not advocating this. I don't think it's a real starter of an idea. But for example, people have tried to come up with ways of say bartering things instead of using money to accomplish things. Okay, so
for example, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin would be another example. I mean, if you know, I know the government asks on your tax form, you know, have you invested in any kind of cryptocurrency now? So you've at least got to put that yes or no on there.
But that's different than using Bitcoin to barter.
Right.
You know?
But the point is, you could like I could do a service for someone, and instead of accepting money that has to be counted as income, I could accept payment in kind. It's like, okay, I'll fix your car for you, and you can come and you know,
paint my house,
reshingle my roof or something like that I need. You know, that's probably not quite equivalent, but you see what I mean.
Right.
So that's, and if I'm a mechanic and that's my living, then I could do that in a lot of different, I'll fix your car. By the way, you own the butcher shop down the road. How about I fix your car and instead of paying me, you pay me in meat or whatever, right? So that would be a way to avoid then paying taxes. And
in a good way, because it also
promotes
keeps
local
the economy in a local area, which is another thing that Catholic theology has always supported and has seemed to suddenly disappeared in the eyes of
the current
our church officials.
Like he doesn't get that at all.
We saw the opposite now.
Very first paragraph of Tutti Frutti is like he suddenly made charity a global program thing instead of a personal, person-to-person contact encounter kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And as these things kind of get to be more of a thing in the church, it's hard to figure out. It's hard to figure out how we should react to this. We can't deny Catholic teaching, and here we have a pope trying to change Catholic teaching, and there are certain things that have not been defined by the church yet.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of interesting because while I was reading the thing in the catechism with the little footnote about tax evasion, and my first thought was, okay, so it's just here as a little footnote. Well, if you can change a whole explanation, an actual treatment of the death penalty to say the opposite of what it used to say, well, then I guess we don't have to treat this footnote about tax evasion with any kind of seriousness when it comes to the catechism.
Right. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost sure that footnote was not from the Vatican. I think that's from the U.S. bishops.
Oh, like
if
they
I understand
edited
how
the
this
catechism?
works. Yeah, because there are, it's like Pope John Paul II gave us this catechism, and then there were additions to it by the Catholic bishops.
Oh.
If I understand how this worked. So, on capital punishment, Pope John Paul II said something about the reasons for punishment, and then as under that, added by the U.S. bishops, it said something to the effect that that kind of punishment isn't necessary anymore because of our day and age when we can have giant jails and fill people with them. So there's no need to kill people anymore. But one was from the Vatican, one was from the bishops, and neither of them really addressed the entire question of capital punishment.
Okay.
But I think some of these things are added by the U.S. bishops. Might be wrong, but I couldn't find anything why it looks like a footnote.
Yeah, that's
everywhere you look, it looks like a footnote. It's in a smaller
the one
font.
The one exception is when you go to Vatican.va. It doesn't look like a footnote there.
Oh, it is that in from the Vatican?
Yes.
I did not know that. Well, maybe I'm wrong then.
It's like, let's see. Yeah, but it's weird because you're right. Why does it look like a footnote everywhere else? Like fine print.
Yeah, it looks like fine print everywhere else. I didn't look at the one from the Vatican.
All right. Anyway.
Well, okay.
Point is,
we know that it's a sin to lie.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
As far as avoiding taxes illegally, we're supposed to follow the laws of whatever land we live in. Now, when those laws end up being unjust, that doesn't mean we don't have to follow the laws. But when those laws end up harming the Catholic way of life,
or
then there might
requiring
be
us, if the law is, such that it requires us to knowingly participate in a materially significant way with injustice.
Yeah.
Then we would not be obligated to follow the law.
Right. One thing that tax evasion does not do, as Pope Francis seems to insist it does, it does not equal stealing from the poor.
Oh, right. Because taxes should never be levied for the purpose of giving to the poor.
Yeah. So you can't... He's wrong here. It's not stealing from the poor to not pay your taxes. It's just not paying your taxes. Oftentimes unjust taxes.
If all taxes were spent justly and appropriately, then not paying them would be stealing from everybody.
Right.
Because taxes should support those things that are
meant to encourage a communal
matters of the common
community.
Good.
Yeah, but paying people not to work doesn't help the common good. Never did. It's a sure way to
undermine
destroy
the common
a
good.
country. Yeah, we've never seen it work. And we've seen it tried over and over again in the past 200 years. And it's not going to work this time either. But I don't know any real way to fight it.
No, that's the problem. That's something else that people often, I think even our bishops and our pope sometimes don't understand what is truly meant by the common good, or what truly belongs to the common good. Because a lot of times they think, they'll think, for example, everybody needs food, therefore food is a common good, therefore making sure that poor people have money for food is a common good expenditure of tax dollars, therefore the government should use tax dollars to feed poor people. They use logic like that, but they're missing what the common good is in that case. Because a true common good is a good that not only applies commonly to the community, but it's a good that for some people to participate in it doesn't diminish it for other people. Consider, for example, like justice. Okay, like the rule of law and fairness and justice and the adjudication of, civil matters and criminal cases, that kind of stuff. That's a common good. As more people benefit from that, it's not like, he got fairness from the court, and that his getting fairness took away from the available fairness out there for me to get.
Right.
You see what I mean? That's what a common good is. Something that does not diminish. A common good is not a zero-sum kind of game like that. If you consider...
If you wanted something more tangible, maybe like roads.
Yeah, roads.
Going through a city. That's a common good.
Right. Okay, I use the road, and that doesn't mean somebody else can't use the road. Now, roads are an example, common... Roads, they can become clogged as a lot of people start using them, so you gotta build more, maybe. I don't know, but
it's a common headache.
It's but you don't say, wait a minute, he can't drive because then it takes away my use of the roads. It doesn't work that way. The roads are common to everybody, and true common goods. It often, the more people participate in it, the more it's available for everybody. So common goods are often things that are abstract in some way because of that. Now, there may be a material contribution to establishing the common good. So, for example, the common good of fairness and justice requires that the state have people who are assigned to oversee cases, to hear cases from, say, litigants or whatever. And those people have to be people who are trained both in the law and in the principles of equitable justice and so on and so forth. There has to be a neutral ground on which the litigants can come and argue their case. So you need to build courthouses and stuff like that. And, all these are material contributions to the common good of, say, justice and fairness within a society. But you can draw the direct line there. That's the common good, is justice and fairness. Something like food. Food is commonly needed. It's a thing that it's kind of common to the human race to need food, but it's not a common good. It's a to the extent that there's a certain amount of it to go around. It's a distributive good. It's not really like that because we keep growing it. It's food itself even is not quite a zero-sum game, but it's not. It's also not a common good because it's not like, you can go participate in food without diminishing it for other people.
Yeah,
you just have to have a network for allowing people to do what they need to do to acquire food. Okay, so people
that's kind of the big thing.
They can go earn money. They can take that money and spend it on food, or they can spend it on something else. The economy, which is the ability of people to exchange like that, that's a common good. And the more people that participate in it, the more of it there is.
the best way to lend to the common good is to make sure the most number of people, the highest number of people, can partake in all of these things that are given to the common good. So to make sure more people than not can engage in commerce or use the roads or use the justice system. And when less people are able to take part in that because of money, because of class, then it's going against the common good. And that's exactly what happens in things like communism and socialism. It's not advertised that way, but socialism isn't really socialism. It's just the highest form of crony capitalism. Because then the state owns everything, and if you're in the state, you decide who gets what and what kind of business different people are allowed to get. And if you want to see capitalism and communism combined, then look at China, communist China. There are very few people with all the business because the government decides who's going to be allowed to have those businesses. And that's exactly how we're moving in the United States. The companies like your local stores all had to shut down while Amazon and Target and Walmart were allowed to stay open. That's not contributing to the common good. That's exactly the opposite. And how do we get on these?
Well, we were talking about how a lot of times the government wants to use taxes. They'll invoke the term common good. Right. And I think even bishops do that without understanding what they're talking about.
And they've gotten it so wrong that it's just, they misuse the word all the time now. But I guess the bottom line is that tax evasion, certain kinds of it can be a sin. I don't think it's ever a mortal sin.
Yeah, not of itself. The mechanism, the means by which you evade taxes might be a mortal sin sometimes. But if you in old days, if you evaded taxes by killing the tax collector, that would be a mortal sin.
If you killed the tax collector, it's probably a mortal sin.
In modern America, the lie, if you told a lie about something on your tax report, there might be a mortal sin in there.
I don't know.
It might not be, depending on the quality and extent of the lie. I don't know. That's the thing. It's like things are so. It's like okay, is it even? Does it really even count as a lie, or is it really a attestation of personal integrity, or is it just okay? This is what I want to put on the paper. I mean, things are so disconnected in America when you get into a bureaucracy like that. The concept of a lie, like, almost sort of becomes smoky, and it's hard to. It's like if I'm talking to a guy. And I say, hey, I need to, if you make up a story about why you can't pay the amount that he wants to charge you for fixing your car, and you get him to come down on his price because of this made up story, okay, that's a lie. You're lying to a person. But it almost feels like, okay, it's just a number that goes into a bureaucratic machinery of cogs and wheels. And the game is to get away with what you can within that machinery. It's really hard to hang on to that concept of a lie as a personal sin in that bureaucratic context. I'm not saying that you shouldn't hang on to it. I'm not saying that it's okay to lie. I'm just saying that I could understand people having a hard time feeling like they're lying if they misreport stuff on their taxes.
Yeah. You're right. And I know people who like claim every penny because of what they say. They're not going to lie, but there are weird circumstances when you get to these giant bureaucracies where it's like it's impossible not to lie, because by your definition I did one thing, and by this other guy's definition I did another thing, and I have to claim to both people something.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like cases where it's like it's illegal to do one thing, but not doing that is also illegal
for a different reason. Yeah,
it gets there's so many rules like and it gets to be where this whole damn thing is just nonsense. I'm just gonna get away with keeping however much I can of my own money.
Right. Or it's like there's I could see somebody feeling like, all right, you know what? I'm going to fill out my taxes and I'm going to put truthfully all the information related to anything that it's your business. But I'm not going to tell you anything that I don't feel like it's your damn business anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, is that lying? I don't know. I have a hard time making a argument that it is.
Right. I guess we're not going to come here and say that it's a sin to evade taxes.
And we're definitely going to say that you probably, as a Catholic, have a moral obligation to pay absolutely as little taxes as you can get away with legally paying.
Yeah.
That's
what they're
something
using
that we can say.
The money for. Yeah. And then there are even more insane cases, like in Germany. Don't you pay a certain amount of taxes to the church that you claim to be a part of?
Yeah, the government collects a church tax. Now, and then, it's even weirder than that. What I'd have to go and research and find out, but we were just talking about this the other day. My son, who had been stationed in Germany for some years in the Air Force, and he was saying it's worse than that. What it is that there's certain areas of Germany that are kind of like carved up to the different churches, like Lutheran or Catholic or whatever. And the expectation is if you're a member of that church, you live in the appropriate area. And if you live in that area, you're taxed and your taxes go to that church. And if you don't want to be part of that church, you can declare, I'm not part of this church, and then you don't pay the church tax.
But you pay the other church tax.
Well, no, then you don't pay any church tax. But the thing is, you first of all don't get the sacraments of the church that's in that area. But like, let's say you live from what he explained it, you might live in a Lutheran area, and you say, no, I'm not a member of the Lutheran church. I say, okay, well, you don't pay the church tax. Church tax. Then you've signed this sort of declaration of not being Lutheran, but because you don't live in the right area, you don't really have access to the Catholic sacraments or something like that.
I don't think it's quite like that.
I don't think it is either, but that was his impression from when he was over there. So
maybe American over there might see it that way and get. But I do understand that if you want to be Catholic, if you declare yourself Catholic, your money's taken and given to the Catholic Church. And if you decide, I don't want to give the German bishops who are blessing same-sex unions my money, you could say I'm not Catholic, but what does that say? You're denying the church.
You're officially declaring to the government that you're an apostate from the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Now that's, for a German who wants to know, is this tax evasion wrong? That brings up a whole different situation.
Yeah.
I'm declaring I'm not Catholic. I would hate.
You don't have access to the sacraments. They won't baptize your kids, and so on and so forth.
I didn't even know that was part of it.
You lose access to the sacraments then.
I'm just thinking along the lines of, I would hate to die and on Judgment Day say, well, I got this paper here saying you're not part of the church.
That's right. You just signed this declaration of apostasy.
So...
no, I don't think I'm going to do that.
I think in those cases, you do have it, because I'm sorry, we should not be supporting these bishops.
Right, right.
And so you do have a duty not to necessarily deny your faith, but to keep from paying them as much as you can keep from paying them.
You certainly
which
shouldn't
means,
be putting more into the basket.
Yeah, which might mean trying to fool the government into thinking you made less than you made, or I don't even know how their taxes work. Is it an income like American taxes, or?
Oh, I have no idea.
I think it is. But our tax systems have gotten more and more complicated in the past 200 years. And the church has really yet to define anything here, other than what people like Pope Francis says. But
which he hasn't defined.
He hasn't declared any of this as teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are just things he says and some of his letters. He hasn't taught from the chair of Peter, and the church hasn't put out anything official that I know of, other than this tiny little statement, which looks like a footnote in the catechism, which we know the catechism can be wrong.
Yeah, apparently.
Because
that's the
Pope
thing.
Francis is teaching error in the catechism.
According to Pope... Well, that's true. So the catechism, no matter how you look at it, either the catechism can be wrong, and Pope Francis has told us that it can be wrong because he said it needed to be changed, or the catechism can be wrong, and the proof is that Pope Francis put something wrong in the catechism.
Right. So one of those two things are true because the catechism can be wrong.
He did change it. Right.
This is not church teaching when the catechism says tax evasion is a sin. It's not stealing anyway, because that's where they make their claim.
Right.
Their claim is in line of stealing. It's not in line of lying. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
They're not saying it's a sin because you're lying. They're saying it's a sin because you're stealing.
Yeah.
So, do we have anything else to say about that?
I don't know. It's just, I wish I had time to, do you remember back when we were kids? I can't remember whether like high school or late grade school. And there was a bishop, West Coast nutball, named Raymond Hunthausen, who was like encouraging people to just not pay taxes, because of how much of it went to supporting, say, the nuclear program, the nuclear arms program. This is like back in the 80s. And I'm kind of curious, I would be curious to see what kinds of statements the U.S. bishops made concerning him, the other U.S. bishops, and how many of the U.S. bishops supported what he was saying, or how many of them said, no, you can't go there. Because it would be a really sticky wicket now if they had been supporting him, because now anything that they could say to support him would apply 100 times more
like
heavily.
Abortion.
Exactly. With as the government's getting into, promoting and supporting abortion and that kind of stuff.
And most of the programs that are, quote, for the poor are seem to point towards abortion and birth control.
Yeah, it's like, we'll help the poor by getting rid of poor people. Yeah.
Which has always been oppressive government's move. I don't know why. It's like America was it was like they kind of reawakened the fact that a big population is rich, and the way to make your country rich is to have a big population.
Yeah.
And
wealth is the result of human activity.
Yeah. And then it's like, I don't know, suddenly in this, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, somehow they were convinced that in order to make people richer, in order to make the populace richer, there should be less people. They got it backwards.
Yeah, certain governments, a lot of leftists, actually, I think a lot of leftists and governments, it's not that they got it backwards. It's that their agenda is not what you think it is. It's not to try to create prosperity. The agenda is try to establish control, and fewer people are easier to control than more people.
I guess that's what it is. But I mean, I think of things like in communist Russia, they didn't. Yeah, they were poor. They didn't have enough food, and their way of solving that was just killing a bunch of people.
Right, exactly. So,
Instead
we
of
don't have enough food to go around, and that was I think like a kind of a knee jerk, because the problem was the Soviet government, the Soviet Communist Party had taken over and instituted their systems, and it's like, wait, the fact that people are starving, that is a sign. That's a indication of our failure. That's an indication of the inadequacy of the communist system, or the Soviet, the socialist system. We got to get rid of them. We've got to reduce it so that we have enough people that we can feed them all now. I think
they went from a bad system, like a Tsar system, or almost kind of a monarchy, and then went to communism, and the problem got even worse. Instead of going the way America did with a capital system or a free market system, where the problem just got it was
practically
like,
eliminated.
It just it's like there's no such thing as poor people anymore, and
we were on our way there for sure. I mean, okay, we had our American ghettos and that kind of stuff, but you know what? I don't think American ghettos, I bet they couldn't compare with ghettos in places like Paris and London.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a normal thing for people to starve to death in America.
And actually, weren't American ghettos a phenomenon that resulted from government intrusion into the system?
If we're talking about huge areas of mostly black, mostly poor areas,
like abject poor,
this was the government.
That was a government made. Those are like modern housing projects and stuff like that. That was all government doing. That was not the American system. Right.
It's exactly when
that was
we
Democrat
abandoned
policies.
The American system. Yeah. And in Nazi Germany as well, they weren't poor, they were doing better, but suddenly they decided we need to quit providing for people who are not providing back into the system. And so they killed a bunch of them off.
Oh, yeah.
The lame and the old, and it's just that whole way of thinking is the exact opposite of the American way at first anyway, where we had this land, and the idea is we are going to fill it with people. All Americans, all working separately without a whole lot of charge and micromanagement to produce and to make wealth. And it worked. And I don't understand why we're abandoning that way of thinking.
Yeah, in fact, it kind of brings to mind I saw a commercial recently. It was some kind of wealth management commercial, the retirement wealth management, something or other. And it said on the screen, it had the line, there are 333 million American dreams. And the implication was that there's not an American dream. There's like each person has their own dream, and that's what counts. And it just kind of like angered me to see that, because they were diluting the reality, the historical reality, that there is a thing called the American dream, which is exactly what you're describing.
Right.
And there is nowhere else in the world an equivalent. There's not a German dream that's the German equivalent of the American dream, or Italian, or French, or Sudanese, or Chinese, or anywhere else. It's the American dream. And to dilute that and ignore the historical significance of it, and now we're practically being taxed out of the possibility of the American dream.
Right. And the thing is, at one time, America was slowing down the way we are right now, to the point where it seemed like that American dream was
kind of
going to die real soon. And then Reagan got elected.
That's true.
And the first thing he did was cut taxes, and suddenly prosperity started spreading. We didn't have giant brownouts. Remember the brownouts?
The
I remember
brownouts
seeing all
in California.
Yeah, it's like,
gosh.
But I mean, that was happening all over the country. if I understand it right. There were energy shortages. Everybody had to turn their thermostats up or down according to whatever was going to save money at the time. Right. Everybody had to be cold during the winter and hot during the summer because there wasn't enough power. We use a lot more power than we used to, and we don't have that problem in certain areas. Now, California, because they're retards.
They still have that problem.
Yeah. But other areas get just as big, just as populated, and they don't have that problem.
It's going to get worse in California because everybody who's not a retard is moving out. And
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
New York's
going
to go the way of California, too, because everybody who's not a retard is moving out of New York.
Yeah. All right. Do we got anything else?
Nope. I think we've kind of exhausted it. And the bottom line answer is the question of tax evasion. It's a complex question, and it's not necessarily cut and dry that it's a sin to avoid paying even those taxes that on paper the law says you ought to be paying.
Right.
But the means by which you achieve that avoidance might be sinful. You got to watch for that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in the news, we had a couple things happen this week that I guess some people find kind of disturbing. Some people find very disturbing. And we'll just go through this first before we get to the main news.
Okay.
In January 20th, there was, they have all these sex abuse scandal reports coming out of all these different cities. There was a 1,000-page report coming out of Munich, Germany. Now, I see it reported as 1,000 pages, and then later 2,000 pages, and then later 3,000 pages. I don't know how many pages it actually is, but the first time I can see it reported, it said 1,000 pages.
That's weird.
So,
wouldn't it be funny if it's like 100 pages?
Yeah, it's like 10 pages. Describes 500 victims between the years 1977 and 1982. Well, no, it's not between those years, but those are the years that Pope Benedict was the Archbishop of Munich. So we had Ratzinger handling Munich during those years from 77 to 82. And out of that time, there were 500 victims of abuse. The report also reported that 4 of those cases, it could be said that Ratzinger mishandled it. So out of 500 cases, 4, it seems to call into question Ratzinger's
handling of 4
handling
out of 500. Okay.
Out of 500. 2 cases involved perps who offended while he was in office and were punished by the judicial system, but apparently not punished by him.
By the church.
They weren't limited in what they could do.
Judicial, you mean.
Yeah. Okay. There was another case where I guess this guy named Father Peter had done something outside the diocese and then came into the diocese to undergo therapy, which was ordered by the court. And
now, he was like being transferred from one diocese to the other. He was actually a priest of the other diocese being transferred into Munich.
Right.
For the therapy.
And then he was, I guess after that, he was allowed to be a priest.
Like
I don't even know.
Not only just be a priest, but get into like ministry, like I don't know, whatever, like ministry positions or something like that gave him access to more young boys.
Yeah. And this was in 1980. They show this report to Pope Benedict. Pope Benedict sends back an 82-page statement. 82 pages. A pope, a former pope is handing in an 82-page legal statement.
To a law firm.
Which is just weird. But in that case, they had addressed a meeting where they had talked about Father Peter, and in the statement from Pope Benedict, he said, I was not at that meeting.
This is part of the 82-page statement.
Yes. Now, and that was January 24th is when he gave that statement.
So was this have you has anyone released the contents of the 82 pages or like?
I have not looked at them, but what happened was Pope Benedict says, I wasn't at that meeting. And then someone calls him out and says, wait a minute, if we read the minutes of that meeting, you're mentioned a couple times. It's obvious that you're there.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is the whole 82 pages about that meeting?
I don't think so.
Or is it a whole bunch of other stuff and the meeting is like just a tiny part of the 82 pages? Okay.
That's the feeling I got.
Okay, so it's like he's responding to a whole bunch of stuff and there's a meeting in there that he's asked about. He's like, I wasn't at that meeting. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
And okay. In that case, yeah, I get it. I just wanted to kind of like get that context right.
Sure. Yeah. And
so somebody figured out he really was at the meeting.
Somebody figured out, yes, you were at the meeting, and they accuse him of it. And then February 8th, he acknowledges that he was at the meeting, but still didn't know about Father Peter's abuse.
Oh, okay.
So he's saying, yeah, I was at the meeting. I misspoke. I said I wasn't, and that was a mistake. But I did not appoint this guy to be around kids when I thought he was an abuser. That was what he was trying to say. It's one of those things that, from what I can tell, in the meeting that Cardinal Ratzinger was at, they did not address exactly what Father Peter's offenses were.
It was just,
so if we
for
only went
or something.
Right, if we only went by what we know about the meeting, it does not
look that significant.
Yeah, it does. Benedict was
therapy
not.
Could have been a nervous breakdown or something, for all anybody knows, or for all anybody in that meeting knew.
So that's what it looks like happened. There are people, of course, who just don't like Catholics, and so they're saying, well, he should resign as Pope Emeritus, which I don't even know what that means. Yeah, that's insane.
You should resign as ex-Pope.
Yeah. And there are also people saying he should personally apologize for mishandling it, which, if he did know about it, then obviously he should. If he didn't, there would be no reason for him to. It would be hard.
And in fact, it's kind of, I find myself often in this situation, because, it's like, let's say with my wife, for example, but it's this way with other people too, and it gets me into hot water. Okay, so you made some decisions that you thought were the best ones at the time, and based on the information that you had at the time. And in fact, if the information that you had at the time was accurate, it really would be the best decision. But you were lacking information, and it went sideways, something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so I need to apologize to people, but my sort of, and this may be a German trait because we're, largely German ourselves. My scrupulosity for the truth prevents me from pretending that I'm at a fault that I wasn't really at.
Right.
It's like, I can apologize for not knowing something, okay, but I can't apologize for doing something either ill-intentioned or whatever, when in fact I had every good intention and acted on the best information that I had at the time. And people will take that and they treat it like, you're just absolutely incapable of saying that you're wrong, aren't you? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm perfectly capable of it. If I'm ever wrong, I'll say it. That's how it comes across.
Yeah. I'll let you know if I'm wrong. Okay, that's the way it is if he's telling the truth.
If he's telling the
about
truth,
not knowing
yeah.
about Father Peter.
Yeah.
There are some people saying he did know about Father Peter and that he's not telling the truth. And even some kind of traditionalists who
Are saying that?
severely disappointed in Pope Benedict.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's going on is that some people look at the situation with Pope Francis and Pope Benedict as Pope Benedict gave up the reins and handed them to this other guy, but he's still there, and if needs be, he can do something if this other guy gets too far off track, you know? I think some people look at it this way.
That would be
There
weird.
are some people who still think he's really the Pope and that Pope Francis isn't the Pope.
Yeah.
But they still look at Pope Benedict as the good guy and Pope Francis as the bad guy. And something like this seems to hit them kind of hard. Because it kind of makes them think, well, okay, Pope Benedict apparently is just like all the other guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that is a possibility.
It's a possibility.
It shouldn't upset people too much, though.
Right. Well,
I mean, Pope Benedict left us to Pope Francis. No matter what, he did do that.
That's true. That's true.
And he may have...
Having pleaded, ill health, whatever, but, I mean, here we are. How long has Pope Francis been Pope? Like...
A lot of years.
10... Well, let's see. It was
8 or 9 years,
9 years? I think 9 years. I think it's going on 10 years. 10 years later, and Pope Benedict is still strong enough to, be in the limelight when he needs to.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? I mean, it's like, okay, what was really going on? Because your claim for why you were stepping down, I would have expected you to be dead in 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, look at John Paul II. I know there's a lot of people, who, especially in like some of the retrospect of the whole sex abuse scandal and that kind of stuff, feel a little bit red-pilled about John Paul II. But if you just look at his example, he
stayed in there.
He stayed in there through Parkinson's and whatever else he had. Was it Parkinson's or Huntington? Whatever disease he had. He just stayed there until, sort of the ravages of whatever disease he had, along with old age, took him.
Right. And Pope Benedict didn't. He backed out, and we don't know exactly why, but we do know the result of that was leaving us
with Pope
to
Francis.
The wolves.
Yeah. So,
that's what he did. So if you could say that he did loosen restrictions on the Latin Mass, but what good does that done us? Well, actually, it did us a lot of good because the Mass got more and more popular and started building an actual movement. But here we've got Pope Francis reversing that, and we're kind of back to where we were. Mm-hmm. Other than the fact that more people know about it. But I'm just pointing out that a lot of good that did us.
Right. Ultimately, yeah. So,
you can't tell me he didn't know what kind of guy he was leaving the church to.
Well,
maybe he didn't, but he couldn't know who they would elect.
Yeah, who the conclave was going to elect. But he certainly knew what was going on politically at the time and who was talking to whom and who the favored possibilities were and that kind of stuff. He knew the environment, the atmosphere.
Yeah, he knew who he was leaving us to. If not in name, then at least in as a group collectively, he abandoned us, and so you should get it out of your head that Pope Benedict was this traditionalist, and that I just can't see him as the good pope, because he's the one who left.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, so that's what happened with this whole apology thing and whatnot. In Canada, so we had these giant convoys of truckers coming in, shutting down Ottawa, shutting down Ontario, shutting down several bridges. It looks, the mayor of Ottawa and the, I don't know what this is, a premier of Ontario.
Oh, okay.
The Ontario premier, Doug Ford, he's declaring a state of emergency. We've got all these politicians declaring states of emergency because truckers are lining up and beeping their horns, and that's all they're doing. So
the thing is, to explain your question before, Ottawa is a city, and so it has a mayor, but Ontario is a province of Canada. Canada has different provinces. Like Ontario and Saskatchewan and Alberta and British Columbia and stuff. They have premiers.
Okay, kind of like a governor, maybe.
Yeah.
It says here that Canadian police have cleared the Ambassador Bridge, and I think, there was the Peace Bridge. I don't know if that's the same as the Ambassador Bridge. No, it's a different bridge.
Okay, so two different bridges.
Yeah. It looks like Ambassador Bridge was cleared. I don't know if... you should see they've got videos of this where it's like these lines of these cops dressed up like army guys, special ops, coming in to arrest these like truckers who are just sitting there. They're not fighting or anything. It looks so pathetic.
Yeah.
It is so disgusting. And so they cleared out the Ambassador Bridge so that things could open up, I guess. But I think other bridges are still kind of in question. Mm-hmm. It's hard actually to find any information on that.
That's because
it's kind of being...
Yeah, the media have kind of agreed to come together, lock arms, and sort of play a game of Red Rover against these truckers.
Yeah, so it's hard to really get... You can go to Rumble and get videos of people there, and they'll show something on the news that looks like maybe 10 people are there, and then you go to look at other people's videos. Now, it's not like hundreds of thousands are there, but it's a lot more than what they show on the news.
Yeah, I see.
I think in Ottawa, 7 people are arrested, 500 got tickets. I don't see any statistics on... So if there's 500 people getting a ticket, it's a lot more than 100 people, you know?
Yeah.
I don't see any other statistics, but that's still going on. We'll see this. It's Sunday night. We'll see if that goes over into next week.
And just for those who have been living under a rock, these truckers are protesting the stupid mask mandates of Canada that would require
and the vaccine mandates.
Yeah, the vaccine mandates. These are guys who, it's like they spend all day in their truck. What do they need to be concerned about these stupid health regulations that are even themselves based on like bad and immature information about COVID anyway?
Yeah, it's insane. And so we've got a group of truckers who decided, all right, let's see how they run the country without us.
Yeah.
And so I hope they do well. And I hope that American truckers take
unite.
note.
That's
and
right.
Unite and try to do the same thing.
It would kind of be interesting because, the Canada, the whole stereotype from Canada, being like unwilling to even put up their dukes even for honor's sake and so on and so forth. I don't know, maybe we got the Canadian people wrong if they rally around these truckers and like bringing about some kind of change.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So we still got this stuff brewing up in Ukraine and Russia. German chancellor meets with Biden, and Germany's saying that they will be acting together with the United States if Russia invades Ukraine. But if I'm not mistaken, it was Germany who started buying oil from Russia instead of us or from Ukraine. Yeah. So I don't...
That's interesting.
Okay.
So what's Biden offering to Germany to get him to say that?
Well, okay, here's the weird thing, is that he keeps saying that we're going to help Germany, or Ukraine. The U.S. deployed 3,000 additional troops to Poland amid tensions with Russia. At the same time, we're telling everybody get out of Ukraine, and... Okay, the Pentagon ordered all U.S. troops to leave Ukraine.
Okay, but they're putting them in Poland. Well, I mean, Poland is... excuse me. Poland borders Ukraine.
Poland is determined to help Ukraine, so they're saying.
Okay, so...
Or they have said. I don't know
then maybe that's
where exactly they stand now.
We're going to use Poland as a sort of point of amassing our troops to be ready to go to Ukraine's aid if needed.
I guess. But, I mean, when you think about it, it's like, okay, you got a bunch of guys over there who are building up an army to come get me. And this other guy says, hey, I'm going to help you. And then he goes across the street and waits. It's like, wait a minute.
You see all those guys over there?
I thought you were going to help me.
I'm going to be with them, and when it's time, we'll come help you.
Yeah. It's like, hey, that don't seem right.
Meanwhile, you're facing down this guerrilla.
Yeah, 100,000 Russian troops with advanced weaponry at their border getting ready to invade. I imagine they're pretty scared.
Yeah, I bet.
But as we had talked about, I mean, it's not that simple. You know, there's a lot of Ukrainians who actually want Russia.
Yeah, they want to be part of Russia. They have historically been part of Russia. They feel like they have the same.
Might be thinking,
cultural.
Why would you want that? But it would be like, if a place like think of what's that little island? Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is so corrupt, and it's got the people there are so poor.
Yeah.
And those people want America to absorb them as a state.
Yeah.
Because they think once America takes over, they'll get rid of this corruption. They're dead wrong, but that's the thinking. And that's the thinking of a lot of Ukrainians. Because Ukraine is so corrupt, they think we'll get Russia in here and then we'll get rid of these bad politicians. And that's why this is not just an invasion.
Right.
This is a lot different than an invasion. But we'll see. I don't know.
How it plays out.
I don't think we should go to war with Russia. I just don't think we should.
Not over this. It's
yeah.
I mean, if there were a compelling American interest in Ukraine, maybe, but
yeah.
The thing is, we have to be thinking politically, like geopolitically, 5, 10, 20, 30 years out in order to make some wise and prudent decisions here, because even while Russia is, maybe flexing its muscles a little bit with Ukraine, and Russia itself is a huge country in terms of landmass, the real sort of enemy on the rise is China.
Yeah.
And Russia and China are not friends right now. And China is just pure plain evil. Russia, as the Soviet Union, was absolutely evil, but Russia at least has a not fully Catholic, but legitimate Christian, historical Christian church. The Russian Orthodox is part of the Eastern Orthodox tradition, a sacramental church.
Yeah.
We should be doing our best to make sure that Russia and China don't become friends.
Right. And look, okay, think back Vietnam. We were trying to save this little corner of Vietnam with communism taking over. But the problem is that government that we were trying to save was so corrupt that the people there didn't necessarily want it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't corrupt, the people would want it. And if Ukraine wasn't corrupt, the people there would want to keep Russia out.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily in our business to tell them, no, you have to let this giant, or no, you can't let this giant country absorb you. It's just we shouldn't be there no matter what. But I don't think we'll do anything major there. I think, like you said, this is Biden having a war so that he can, I think he thinks he's going to boost his numbers. It's like, hey, rally around me. I'm fighting Russia. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, we have avoided Russia for decades now, and you're going to come in and get us into a war with them over the Ukraine.
Right.
Oh, well. In other news, NASA awards Lockheed Martin a contract to build the next generation of the Mars vehicle, the Ascent vehicle, I guess.
Okay.
The plan here is to get rocks from Mars and bring them back to Earth sometime in the 2030s. So maybe 10 to 15 years out. So I don't know if they got a 15-year contract, but it just seems, I don't know. Should it take 15 years to do this? I guess that's a pretty big deal. You got to get that thing to land on Mars, and then it was hard enough to get it off the moon again.
That's what I was going to say. Low gravity. It's more like landing on, I mean, not quite as much, but more like landing on Earth and then getting back up. Think about a launch. Everything that goes into launching from the surface of the Earth, and then think about doing that without any ground control support like we have here. With the only things you have at your disposal are the things you took there with you. It's a little bit more like that.
Trying to land that much fuel alone is a huge thing to get over.
Yeah, I would say that's not an unreasonable timeline for making sure that they get it right.
Yeah. And the fact that the communication between the two sides, I mean, is it like an 8-minute delay?
Oh yeah, and in fact, think about. I mean, they have to plan the timing too, in terms of where on the surface. But think about this: if Earth and Mars are kind of on the same side of the sun, that's one amount of delay. But if they're on the other side of the sun, you add 16 minutes to the delay. Well, actually, if you think of it as there and back, you add 32 minutes to the delay, whatever delay you already had.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's scheduled. We're hoping the 2030s. I know there's a bunch of idiots out there who think in 10 years we're going to be starting colonies in Mars. Let's reel it back a little. Come back to the planet Earth. We're not going to Mars to live. We just want to get a rock sample, and that's not going to happen for another 10 to 15 years. Yeah. So
that's,
nobody's going to Mars. I know they show,
colonization. I mean, it's not like it's not out of the realm of possibility, but you should be thinking like 125 years for colonization, not 10 to 25 years.
Right. It's not the answer to any of our problems here on Earth.
That's true.
So archaeologists discovered a human tooth in Mandarin, near France, dating to, what's YBP? Is that BC?
YVP?
I just noticed that, and YBP.
Did you say like Yankee Victor?
Years before present.
Oh, okay. Years before present. So, why don't they just say that many years ago?
Didn't it? Is that what it means?
So stupid. Years before present?
54,000 years ago? Instead of...
Just... People
Oh my
come up with
gosh.
such stupid things.
That's so dumb.
Just say it's 40,000 years old.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the point is that it's 10,000 years earlier than they thought was the arrival of humans in Europe.
Oh, okay.
So, years before.
So
I skipped over that, and I was thinking BC,
Right,
54,000 BC.
BC or whatever,
No,
yeah.
it's not years before present. I didn't even know what that meant.
So and that's the thing. I mean, okay, when you're talking 40,000 years before present, it doesn't really matter. But let's say you started
just say
using that
BC.
for, it's like, okay, this was 168 YVP or 32 YVP or whatever. You're
5
reading an
YVP.
article. You got to go and find the date of the article to figure out what year you're talking about. That's just completely stupid.
But when it's 54,000, who the hell cares?
Well, I know. Just say 54,000 years ago, though. Okay, so
My goodness.
Okay, so this is in France, though.
Yeah.
And so how human is it? Because, France is not just Europe. France is like almost the westernmost part of Europe.
Oh.
And actually, is this coming... Because the seat
It just says human tooth. Homo sapiens.
Homo sapien, not like Homo something other than sapiens, not like human...
right.
Like, Neanderthal
not
or something like that. Just
Right.
regular Homo sapiens.
This is a regular
That's
human
what I was
tooth.
wondering.
54,000 years YBP.
But you know what? Why would they think it was not that? Because I thought everybody kind of agreed that the Mediterranean was sort of the seat of human development. Like that's where humans originated.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Or I could be at,
They come up
saying
with
old
so many
information.
different...
But France is right on the Mediterranean.
This stuff changes so often that I for the most part, I don't pay attention to any of it. Because most scientists seem to think that humans did not start from one set of parents.
Oh.
And so I kind of stopped listening to most of that science because a lot of it is aimed at proving Christianity wrong and everything else right, even if it's something that nobody believes in, as long as it proves Christianity wrong. And so, they've got all their theories and they go back and forth, and this extends the number of years that human beings were in Europe by 10,000 years.
Okay. So.
In Australia, they have officially listed the koala as an endangered species. Now, one of the quotes is the impact of prolonged drought followed by the Black Summer bushfires. I don't know if Black Summer is this last summer or not, but the disease, urbanization, and habitat loss have all contributed to the koala being endangered. Here's the thing. They keep saying, there's time to save this species, but we need stronger laws and landowner incentives to protect the forest home. I think what this is mostly about is controlling landowners. Australia's in a bad place right now with the government overreach. Mm-hmm. But I don't know enough about Australian government to quite make sense of this. I see this one quote here. Once a recovery plan is adopted, ministers are legally bound not to make decisions that are inconsistent with it. However, governments have no obligation to actually implement the plan.
Okay.
Are they talking about
local governments?
A purely Australian plan, or
like
are they talking about a worldwide plan that we ought to be...
No, because this, like specifically koala, that's an Australian thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So I think they're talking about local governments. It's like, okay, the local governments, it won't force those governments to do anything specific, but when the governments are making decisions, whether it's about, I don't know, granting land use permits or whatever, they're not allowed to act inconsistently with this particular plan if it passes. I think that's what they're saying.
Okay. By the way, the Black Summer fires were 2019 to 2020. I guess there were a lot of brush fires.
Okay.
Probably because they don't know how to make dams. But I don't know. Maybe it could be the same kinds of problems that California experiences because they don't manage forests. Hold on one second. So satellite imagery shows that 430 square kilometers of the Amazon rainforest were deforested in January.
430,000?
No, 430 square kilometers.
That's all?
That seems like not a lot.
That's
but
like
they're saying it's 5 times more than what they did last January. Yeah, 430 kilometers. That's not.
It's got to be. It's got to be 430,000 square kilometers.
No, I don't think so. They are so
430
intent on not destroying any rainforest. I don't know. I don't know how.
Okay, to put that in context.
But
okay, just put that in context. 430. That's like half of 1,000. The state of New Jersey is 19,000 square kilometers.
Yeah, the
tiny New Jersey.
So over 5 million square kilometers is covered by the rainforest.
5 million, and
that's nothing.
They cleared an area that's roughly twice the area of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, that's nothing. I don't. You see shows that on the Amazon rainforest. It is interesting, and it's like, man, there's just this giant area of land that is completely undeveloped, that has really neat animals there, but I don't know. Are all of these animals just going to disappear if we start developing a lot of this land? Number one. Number two, do we need all these animals? It's neat to have them, but I mean, think of in America what we've done here. If we did the same thing down there, things would change, but it wouldn't destroy the planet, I guess is what I'm getting at. I think developing the land is better for the land. There's not as much diversity, but it doesn't destroy anything. It just changes it. And so the Amazon wouldn't be the Amazon. So what? So it'd be something else. Something we can use. What is the point of saving this kind of area for the sake of saving it? There ought to be something we get out of it by saving it. And these tribes who hunt this wild animal or fish for this wild fish won't be able to do that anymore. Yeah, no. But the same way the American Indians couldn't continue to live off of white-tailed deer. They had to do something different, like maybe have goats and raise them.
Yeah, domesticate.
It changed it. It didn't destroy it. America wasn't destroyed by driving out a lot of this, not driving out, but by ending a lot of these habitats. We did end a lot of habitats, and we're fine. And if we went to Africa or South America, and these people got a taste of freedom, and they ended those habitats, they would still be fine.
They'd probably
As a matter of fact,
better off.
They'd be much better than us. Yeah, they'd be much better off. Hold on. Banjo, stop! Okay, I don't care. Is he barking? I guess the Bengals won?
Did they win?
Well, people are doing fireworks, she said. What?
Well, I thought your wife was watching the game.
Say this again? Oh, the Rams.
Oh, the Rams won.
The Bengals
okay.
didn't.
Looks like
I guess they had all these fireworks saved up. They're like, well,
they have to shoot them off anyway. Okay, I just looked up the score, 23-20. All right, okay, 3 times up and 3 times shot down for the Bengals.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we? Finland.
What's going on in
agrees
Finland?
They're going to buy $9.4 billion worth of fighting stuff from us.
Okay.
I don't know why, but...
Finland.
It's weird that Finland is buying a whole bunch of missiles and stuff like that. Just seems like you don't think about them militarily. Maybe they want us to start thinking about them as a military force.
Hey, let's go buy a bunch of stuff from you, and then you can start thinking of us as military.
Yeah, it's just odd. It's kind of weird.
However, it is worth noting that Finland is on Russia's border. They have a fairly big border with Russia.
Okay, yeah, okay. Maybe that's what this is all in lieu of.
Right.
I didn't even bother to look up Finland. Oh, wow, okay. So they're between Russia and Sweden. We've got Ukraine. Where's Poland?
Yeah, well, if you go down...
Poland
is south of Finland, like south of Sweden. You've got the Baltic Sea there.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, Poland, on the other hand, I mean... They're wanting to help Ukraine because that would put Russia right at their border.
At their border. They want to avoid that, which makes sense.
They remember Russian rule.
Yeah.
But Poland isn't an incredibly corrupt nation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of got their act together. They just didn't have, even back then, the army it was going to take to fight off Russia or Germany. So... we'll see what happens here. I think Lithuania is also bent on helping Ukraine.
Okay.
I've heard that Hungary is. I don't know. But that would also put Russia right at their border.
So
yeah, I guess a lot of these people,
it's like
they just don't want Russia at their border.
Ukraine
like we don't need Russia
has
in our border.
It's like, there's the gorilla, and Ukraine is the poor kid that everybody else on the block has decided you're going to go face the gorilla, and we're gonna have your back.
Yeah, we got your back, but you're fighting this entire nation by yourself. Half of your people don't want to fight them, but that opens up most of Europe to Russia. So that's where this...
And
I still don't think we should be involved.
I don't think we should either, but you can see Russia's appeal for Ukraine, and why everybody else in Europe doesn't want Ukraine to be part of Russia.
Right, but there's a mass shooting in Phoenix. It's being described as a mass shooting. I don't know why they're saying that. It was some kind of domestic violence incident,
like a guy
that
shot
ended
his
with
kids or something.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. 5 officers are shot, 4 other wounded. 5 police officers are shot.
So a shootout with police. That's not the same as a mass shooting. I mean, it's tragic, but it's not a mass shooting.
They're saying 5 police officers are shot and 4 others wounded.
Okay.
Did that make sense to you? That doesn't make sense at all.
9 police officers. Wait a minute. Wounded
Why?
how?
5 shot and 5 wounded.
4 wounded with a knife or what?
Yeah, I don't know.
What do they mean by wounded?
I guess they were.
Or were they or wounded with like 5 were shot but there was concrete and they got wounded with concrete shrapnel from the bullets or something? What do they mean?
That kind of Hold on. 4 others wounded. This is from Yahoo News.
Wounded how? What's the difference between being shot and wounded?
Maybe 4 other people. I think...
Oh, 5 police officers shot and 4 other people... Still,
yeah, they left a word out.
Why not 5 police officers and 4 other people, 4 civilians?
Oh, wait a minute, no.
Shot.
No, 4 other officers injured by shrapnel or ricocheting bullets.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Ah,
okay,
so I was
it was
right.
what you said.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, why?
Apparently there was a baby at stake. They were trying to rescue a baby from this crazy guy and his ex-girlfriend, and they had a shootout with him. I don't know why they're calling it a mass shooting.
Yeah.
It's not a mass shooting.
It's a shootout.
It was a shootout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone calls this a mass shooting,
they're
ignore them. They're wrong. It's not a mass shooting. That's all the news I got.
All right. That's all the news. Let's see. I do have some news. Hold on. Let me find this. Where did I put it? Okay. So I have... It's not as fun or funny as it often is, but I do have some Walmart news.
Walmart.
Walmart.
It's always fun when they're in the news.
So they've got this video of a woman that I guess she was like accused of shoplifting, and she must have been shoplifting because she like took a Barbie doll in a package or something and threw it back at the worker.
Yeah.
And then walked. It looks like from the video she just walked away after that.
Okay. So she's like, yeah, I was stealing this, so whatever. And
I guess I know. They're still the police are asking for help finding her. It said I didn't see this in the video. The video, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it said that she had like green hands and green hair, but I didn't pick that up watching the video.
Yeah. Okay. So she is standing there with a Barbie doll. She throws it to her and then walks away. Okay, she had been trying to walk out with it. And they're like, hey, get back here. Give me that Barbie doll. And she threw it to him like, fine.
So I got to think she was really shoplifting because otherwise why toss the Barbie doll that way?
Oh, she had a whole cart.
So she tossed the Barbie doll and took the cart. All of it may have been shoplifted.
She was trying to shoplift it all because they had a self-checkout cart. And then she was trying to get away with the full cart. And then somebody stopped her. And she thought, okay, fine, I'm done here. And then she had that Barbie doll. And she's like, I'll just try to get out with this. And they're like, no, you can't have anything. She's fine. And then throws the Barbie doll at them.
Walmart shoppers.
Walmart. It's so weird that there's a whole classification of shoppers
called Walmart shoppers. Did I ever tell you this anecdote? I was working at a place here in Indy years ago, and there's a fella. He's actually British, but we were sitting around chatting, whatever, and somehow we were thinking about. I forget whether we were talking about laundry detergent or we were talking about trash bags. But I just mentioned, I said, well, in Walmart, the trash bags are by the laundry detergent. And he just he didn't even hesitate a moment. He said, well, that's because that's because people who shop at Walmart carry their laundry in trash bags.
I guess a lot of them do.
That always stuck with me.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, next up. So if a bird, I'm just trying to imagine this. A bird flies up into a tree, and then you have to go rescue the bird from the tree. Just... Okay, the bird's a parrot, but still...
So it's a person's bird.
The bird flied up into a tree and then had to be rescued from the tree.
Okay, did rescue workers do this? I would think it's like, look, my pet went up there and I want my pet back. Don't try to tell me the pet's too scared. If the pet wanted to come down, the pet could come down.
That's what I'm thinking. Wait until
if
dinner
it's a bird,
time. Or
they can fly. They don't.
This is so stupid.
They can fly down.
And it was only 60 feet.
Basically, it's like you're telling this this rescue worker, "Hey,
my bird is
go
stuck
and retrieve
up
my
there.
property for me." It's like, you want your property, you get up there and get it yourself. Quit letting your bird go flying around.
But they made the case my bird is stuck up in the tree. What do you mean?
Yeah, my bird's stuck up in the tree.
That's what birds do.
Yeah. I hear the same, you hear it all the time about cats. The cat.
Yeah, a cat, and I don't even believe it. Honestly,
in a tree.
I don't believe it about cats.
Yeah, I don't either.
Cats are mischievous, evil animals. They're just playing you for something. They're not stuck.
Yeah. They can get down if they want. Yeah. I see the same thing happen with kids.
Wait, that's
My
true.
kids climb up. Dad, help me! Hey, you got up there. You get yourself down. I don't think so. My kids know not to do that to me because I say, look, if you can't get down, then you wouldn't have been able to get up. If you can't get down, you shouldn't be up there to begin with. So I'd say you better get yourself down.
Yep. All right. Okay, my next story. This falls under the category of things that you did not know were world records. And this, actually kind of interesting in a, sort of get a life sort of way. This fellow balanced 4 eggs on top of each other to break the previously existing world record.
There was a record before this?
Let's see.
I can't see. That's impossible.
He says he broke a record.
Or something.
I'm trying to find the previous record though. I can't find
probably just made a record.
No, it was his own record.
Oh, okay.
He set the first record by stacking 3 eggs, and then he beat his own record in Istanbul when he stacked 4 eggs in a tower. It's like,
that can't be possible.
There's a video of it and everything.
I see it, but
is it one of those where he sent the video into the Guinness Book of World Records?
Yeah.
You think? And maybe it's like, the thing is,
how do you balance an egg on top of an egg? There's no way. I don't believe it. Brown eggs.
I'm gonna try it with just 2 eggs at some point, and my wife will say, "Why did you make this mess?"
Yeah, I'd like to see 2 eggs balanced on top of each other. I wonder if they're hard boiled.
Oh, you know what? I would think that it would actually be easier if they weren't hard boiled, and here's why: if they're hard boiled, because you've got like the white and the yolk, and they're different densities. And wherever they are is fixed. That's what it is. But if they're not hard boiled, you can hold it there and wait until the yolk settles. And then you've got the weight at the bottom, and that helps balance it. Seems to me.
That's like when you have an egg and you need to know if it's hard boiled, you try to spin it.
You spin it, and if it,
If it spins, it's hard. Because Grandpa, I think, we'll have, they'll color Easter eggs. And he'll get used to just going into the fridge, grabbing one and breaking it on it. For some reason, he thinks you got to break it on your head. That's where you break an
Easter
egg.
Eggs.
But they had brown eggs in there.
He thought it was
grabbed
colored.
one of those, and but here's the worst part. He's done it twice.
Okay.
But now every time he gets an egg, he spins it first.
Okay, I know this is boiled or not boiled.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, 4 eggs. Anybody think you can beat that? Send your video into the Guinness Book of World Records. My son...
If you could do 1, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Just 2 on top of each other?
Yeah, 2.
I'll try it. I'll give it a try sometime. Okay. My son Charlie is like some weird master at snapping his fingers.
Yeah.
And so he does this thing where he snaps twice in a row with the ring and then the middle finger, and he can go back and forth between his 2 hands and snap like super fast, like it's a buzz almost. Well, he went and looked up the world record, and he figured out that, oh, wait a minute, I can beat the world record. And he produced a video of himself doing it and everything, tried to upload it. The site wasn't working. It wouldn't let him upload the video and stuff. Otherwise, he might be in the Guinness Book of World Records right now.
Hey, Thomas. Thomas. Yeah? What's that thing where you clap your hands real fast? This? Do it real fast.
Yeah, that's
He's
pretty...
not snapping. He's just clapping.
That's pretty good. So, is there a Guinness World Record for that? Maybe he could get in.
I don't know. I'll tell him to... We'll
check it out.
Film him, and then we'll have to slow it down to see how many claps there are.
Yeah.
And see if he can get in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Well, good luck uploading it. I don't know if Charlie can still snap his fingers that fast. Maybe he'll try again someday. But anyway,
next time he's in town, I'll ask him.
But apparently, this guy who could balance eggs was able to figure out and navigate the website or whatever it is he had to do.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Next, so we are both pretty friendly to farm animals and that kind of stuff. Well, here's a guy who takes that to a new level. And this is a guy, I guess, in New York. I can't pronounce the name of the city. It's Kanajahari or something like that. It's on the Mohawk River. He has a pig that he is claiming is a emotional support pet, and the city is saying, nope, that's just livestock. You don't get any special accommodations for that pig.
Okay, but that's a thing where people are just taking any animal,
calling it emotional support. Yep.
Yeah, and they want to bring it into places that normally wouldn't allow animals. I see, I hate it. Yeah. Because I see veterans saying, I need this dog to come into your restaurant because it's a support animal.
But it's like, give me a break, here's what makes me want to, here's what puts my sentiments with the guy. He's not trying to get the ability to bring the pig into restaurants or on buses. He's just trying to get the ability within the village's zoning codes to be allowed to have the pig at his house.
Really?
That's all it is. And the statement from the lawyer that represents the village is, if every citizen were to openly scoff at the village zoning codes, we would live in a lawless society. Really. As though society was completely lawless before villages and counties discovered zoning codes, which actually didn't exist for most of America. Most of American history.
Yeah. Is this guy in America?
Yeah, it's in New York. New York State. Okay, not New York City, New York State.
Yeah, most of our growth took place, but before all these zoning. But the zonings have gotten ridiculous.
Yeah.
The zoning laws. They've just gotten stupid. And the fact that, I don't know.
In fact,
think about it.
I'll go and say, zoning kind of works with taxation to suppress the American dream.
Yeah. On the same token, think about Cincinnati before the zoning laws. And it was Pigtown.
Oh, it used to be called Porkopolis.
Yeah. Now, if you went, the music center, the music place downtown, I can't remember the name of the building. I think it's called the Music Building. That's not it.
No, it's not.
I can't remember.
You're talking about Music Hall?
Music Hall. Music Hall, before they built that there, was a graveyard. It was pauper's
I knew that.
Graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they mostly buried children there because across the street was this place for sick, and I think also mentally ill children.
Oh, right.
Poor children.
Right. And, we grew up with stories about hauntings at Music Hall and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever they have to dig out a new area, they find a lot of skeletons and stuff. But see, it was also a pork town, and the pigs would get in there and dig up the bodies and eat them.
Oh, right.
So, if you can imagine having that many pigs in a city, what that does, And it's like, all right, these companies can't keep their pigs here while they're lined up to be slaughtered. We need another way of doing this. And so they pass zoning laws,
Okay. And so
it's
it kind of makes sense, especially in that context. Yeah, for those who don't know, Cincinnati was the hub of the annual, if you think of it this way, the annual pork harvest. And there were, a few weeks during which it's like the sound from squealing was so pervasive throughout the city that people could barely sleep. It was that bad, literally.
Not in our lifetime or anything.
No.
This is the history.
I know this from reading.
Reading,
accounts that people who lived in Cincinnati back then.
Right. So, I mean, that's just talking about pigs in general. But let's say you've got a neighborhood, a little suburban neighborhood, and a pig. Have you ever heard how loud they are when they decide they want to be loud?
Are they louder than goats?
It's insane. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's because goats can be loud.
Loud. And I mean real little pigs.
Wow.
Well,
okay.
I'm just saying.
It could be a nuisance.
If you had a pig, it'd be a nuisance. It'd be loud and it'd be stinky, too.
Yeah.
They stink.
So, we complain, about stink. That dog that barks at night because the owner doesn't bring it in. So, pigs would be far worse.
Yeah. So, I can see them all right, we're not going to let pigs in the city anymore. And so, on the other hand, I see zoning things as something that we ought to try to fight and get around and find loopholes in any chance we get.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't stand zoning laws.
Yeah.
And zoning lawmakers. They exist only to make things difficult for us. And usually to line their own pockets.
Yeah. But once in a while, you can see there's a nuisance that's big enough that everybody kind of gets together and says, we need a law.
And to me, it should be one of those things where it's like you don't enforce it unless somebody's causing a problem.
Yeah, the law.
Because how it is, you're at a company and it's like, we have Casual Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody starts wearing casual clothes, and then some guy wears something absolutely ridiculous that you shouldn't even wear to an office, or comes in in a bikini or something. It's like, all right, stupid. Now we can't have Casual Friday.
Just ruin Casual Friday for everybody, right?
Or you could set up a judge to say, you know what? I'm going to enforce this law on you and only you. That would be a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It would be less fair, and there would be cases where it's abused.
It's like, okay,
but at the same time, it's abused now.
The law is here. I think the nature of especially municipal laws ought to be that way. The law is there to draw a line that many people will cross. Not most people, but many people will cross, but the line is there so that the one guy who makes a complete nuisance of himself to everybody else, you've got some kind of recourse.
Yeah, that would be ideal, although, I don't know.
It could be abused.
I can see arguments for and against, but it just seems like that would be a good way of doing it.
Yeah. All right. So, if you want a pet pig, I don't know, check out your zoning laws or something.
Yeah, you should check.
Okay, so, the next one, I'm not sure that we should include. I'm going to do it. You decide whether to include it or cut it. In Maryland, some firefighters, no, not Maryland. In Georgia, the sheriff's department responded to a report of a body that turned out to be a doll.
Turned out to be a doll, like a little doll or a...
Like a life-size doll.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And you can see the picture, what kind of life-size doll it probably was.
So it's like a sex doll.
Yeah. They assured in the story they assured the owner that they will not be performing DNA tests.
I think those things cost like thousands of dollars, I think.
Do that? I guess. What are they? I mean, what are they made of? I mean, I guess.
I don't know.
Are they made to, I always thought that was
But
kind of a joke.
like,
I thought those were things that were just blow up things that were like jokes that.
No, there are those. There are those, but this is obviously not what that is.
No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like...
Because it looks pretty dang realistic, and it looks half decayed, but it looks like
just dirty.
Like, think so?
Well,
yeah.
'cause they don't decay, obviously. I think that's just like muck from the
it
woods.
doesn't decay, but it looks like there's decaying matter on the doll.
Oh, okay.
Like weeds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
but
yeah.
It's been there for a long time, and it's not decayed, and it looks halfway real, which makes me think this is probably a very expensive one.
Grown over with weeds and stuff like that.
Yeah, this isn't just a blow-up doll.
Yeah.
Or, hell, maybe it's just a mannequin, though.
Oh, like at a grocery store.
Yeah.
That could be. Because, I mean, they described it as a doll... as they say, a life-size doll dubbed Selena. I don't know who dubbed it. Was it the sheriff's department that dubbed it? But they had a statement. They said, look, okay, if you know Selena or are responsible for the whereabouts, rest assured no DNA was collected and you are safe. But in the future, please make sure to dispose of your items in a responsible way.
That's nuts. It's just... seems like a weird thing for the doll to be there.
Yeah.
I wonder if some guy bought it and then
it's
like had to ditch it because his wife
was coming home or something. Like his wife was out of town. So how are you going to?
I got to do something with it.
How are you going to explain that on your credit card, though?
Yeah, somebody's going to take notice.
Why is there a $2,600 charge on a credit card?
Yeah.
Or whatever they cost. I don't know. I mean, even if it's only $260, you'd think a wife would notice.
Still, yeah, mine would. So
you have one of those credit card stalker wives. I do, but it's because she takes care of the money, and
it's
so
not
she's
that.
always aware of stuff.
It's not that. It's that if $250 are gone, we all know
it. You don't. Nobody.
Because it's like
okay.
Hey,
well, sorry,
we can't.
We can't eat this week.
Yeah. So, oh well.
All right. Anyway, so that's what I got. That's all my news.
Okay. Unfortunately, I did
Don't
not come up with a
no saint. Okay. I was thinking of one. Who was? I can't remember who it was, but there was one that I was thinking that we ought to do. If it comes to me, I'll bring it up, and maybe we'll do it next week if we have time to research.
Okay.
I can even do the research if I think of it.
Yeah. I find myself with less and less time because I've worked most of this weekend.
I know.
I even had to work today.
It's like, oh, wow. Okay. Because I thought we would record last night. It's like, nope, I'm still working.
Yeah, I was up all night, and I have to. This thing has to be ready 8:30 Monday morning. Period.
Oh wow.
No matter what. Mm-hmm. But I think I've got it to a point where I can deliver it, and then I have to go out of town. So it's like, it had to be done. So maybe next week.
All right.
But until then, think about what we said, and as always,
keep circling the beads.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.